Hey guys! Hey, welcome. We're getting started today, and I'm Karen Terry as always, and we're going to be playing Viva Pinata today. And I have my friend with me.
Hi, it's Landon, the omniscient voice, all knowing and all of that fun stuff.
Oh my gosh, I want to
Listen,
be
I
all
have a
knowing.
brand. I have a brand, and that's what I'm sticking to. I'm making it happen.
I like it.
That's yeah. So we are here today on this wonderful day in August. Happy August.
Oh my gosh, it's finally August. Jesus, time flies.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm liking it, but we're gonna just keep going with the rest of the year, I guess. There's nothing else we can do.
I mean, true. One thing I do know right
Um,
now is it's hot as hell.
Oh my gosh. I know us on the East Coast are dying. Like it's just I know August and July are always bad, but this is too much.
It's been ridiculous.
Yes.
Like I
So
just I just went to the store like right before stream, and I had to go in, so I had to wear my mask, right? And oh my god, my face feels so sweaty. Like I hope it's not super shiny.
you're wearing a hat too, which is incredibly just impressive.
Well, it's not hot in the house, just outside. We got the AC going here, so we're all good
Oh,
inside.
the wonders of air conditioning.
I know, right? Okay, so what have we got
Um
today? What are we talking about?
well, today we are going to actually talk about getting started.
Okay.
So, I think that there's a lot of things that we talk about with starting things, whether that's joining a new RP, picking up a new character, or even just something as simple as writing a starter. Everyone who is in the RP community has to start something at some point.
That's true. Hey,
And
Naomi. By the way, thank you so much
yay!
for joining us.
And sometimes that starting, especially for new writers and new RPers, can be incredibly overwhelming and intimidating. And it's something we should talk about.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny then for this particular stream. I'm finally starting the second garden. So we've called this one Swamp. So that's what we're
Ooh.
starting today is our second garden. We've been working just on one garden, but we're going to end up having lots of them with this game.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah.
We get to make it aesthetically nice and pleasing.
Yeah, now that we actually have it like all expanded and stuff. So this
Yes.
one we're gonna make it a lot of like a lot of water. So you'll see, it's gonna be really
Ooh.
cool.
I love a good water feature. So
Yes.
let's go for it. But let's start off with favorite things. What happened to you this week that was your favorite thing?
Okay, so as y'all can probably see, oh my gosh, I have a real chair. A real chair. It's amazing. So this is something that y'all know my birthday was last month, right? So something
Yep.
that we decided, my mom and I decided, like we have no idea whenever this whole thing is going to end, and I'm working from home essentially. Like I have an office job, right? My 9 to 5 is an office job, and so I'm still doing the same job. I'm just doing it from home now, out of my home office, right? So
Yep.
she was like, you need an office chair. If we don't know when this is going to end, like if you continue sitting in that like hotel chair, which that's what that was, by the way, guys, that orange chair that I've been in for forever. It's from a hotel. Uh,
How did
so
you Okay, I need to know how you acquired this hotel chair.
yes,
Because I
so
just imagine you in the middle of the night stealing it.
I mean, you can honestly like so when these hotels when they get new furniture when they do re overhauls on the hotel, like they will just throw it out. They'll just throw out their old furniture. And I have a relative that's in construction, and so like he told us like this hotel has some really nice furniture. They switched out super early, so their stuff feels really new. Come get some stuff, and
Mm,
we got some chairs, and a couple other
okay.
things.
That's not nearly as like super spy
No,
as I thought it would be, but it means you got cool stuff.
yeah, but I mean, you totally can. Like, if you see a hotel being redone, they just take this stuff to the dumpster, so it'll sit in the parking lot for forever before they take it. And yeah, you could totally go grab it. I don't see why not, to be perfectly honest. But
Just
this but this
go
particular
ahead.
chair, I wanted to mention the name of it because this is my favorite thing now that I've got an office chair. That's my favorite thing, and I wanted to mention it by name because it's not, yeah, here we go. OFM Core Collection. So the reason why I'm mentioning it is because for those of you guys that don't know, that always see me, that always just, see me on camera, right? What you don't know is that I'm super short. So I'll stand up real quick so you can see. Like I'm very short. This This is how tall I am.
The
Um,
shortest being.
yeah, so the measurement actually from the back of my knee to like my back, like this where the seat is apparently incredibly short, and I've never had a chair before that I could scoot all the way back in and still bend my knees. So but I do now, and I freaking love it.
That's so nice. And I'm sure it makes it so much easier sitting and being able to sit for long periods of time. I know
Yes.
that sometimes when we are sitting in bad chairs or with bad posture, we don't realize how bad things are until it's fixed. And then you're like, why have I lived any other way?
Yeah, I definitely didn't. Like, I had no idea. I had no idea it was this bad I switched out to um until I switched out to a real office chair, and I was like, "Oh, this is what I've been missing since March, sitting in that hotel chair." So yeah, no more awkward like climbing over the arm to get in and out of it. No more like, bad posture, no more of any of that. And it's just such a blessing. So any of you guys that are in my situation where you are working from home now due to the pandemic, and in the US, we just don't know. We don't know when we're going back to the office. So if that's you, I strongly recommend go get a freaking office chair. Just go get one. Like, it's so worth it.
It very much is. I have one, and I'm not even working from home. I just am a student, so I have one in my house, and it makes a world of difference to be able to actually like be productive and sit and not feel in pain. So everyone
Yep.
should go do that.
I mean, as a student, you're kind of doing the same thing, though, right? Because you're sitting for like hours at a time,
Yeah.
in class, doing homework, things like that. So, I mean, it's still the same kind of idea.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's typically before the pandemic, it was a lot less hours than one would typically work in
Mm-hmm.
an office. However, now that it is fully online, I'm sure that chair and that desk will become my best friend. So we'll see.
Yeah. So you guys are doing full online for your school. They made a decision.
Nope. Um,
Oh,
so
oops.
so this year is my student teaching year.
Right.
And so my classes that I am learning how to teach from will be online. However, Maine in the state has greenlit full-time in-person classes. That
Oh.
doesn't go to say that my district has,
Thank
where
you
I'll
for the
be
follow.
working. Yay! Follow. The person or the district hasn't confirmed or denied that yet. However, the entire
Oh,
state is now allowed to do that.
I
So
see.
I won't. The reality is, I'm so low on the totem pole that I won't know what I'm doing until the day I'm starting.
Gotcha. So I was thinking you had an update, but I guess not. Oh well.
No, nothing fun.
Well, whenever
Um,
you do know, I would love to know.
I will be sure to share it with all of our fans as well, who are like I'm sure just waiting to hear what Landon's dilemma is going to be come this fall.
Well, I mean, I am, so they should be.
um, but so my favorite thing is is kind of nice because it's going to get me ready for this chaos that is the fall, and that is I am currently on vacation.
Oh,
Um, which is very nice, and I think vacations are top of my favorite things list.
my gosh.
Yeah, I live as Karen knows, and as the people who are my friends in watching the stream know, I like to do way too many things at once, which means that I very rarely actually like sit down and take time to not do anything actively, and so it's
You
very
said
nice
it,
to
not
spend.
me. You said it, not me.
Listen, I know how to call myself out. It's fine. I get overwhelmed. And so sometimes when it's nice to just be able to sit down and like do nothing. And this vacation is allowing me to do that, which is very nice. And I am enjoying it. So I will continue to enjoy it probably for the next couple weeks. But I am definitely with family as well, which is interesting. But I'm enjoying it still. We're still at that point.
Got it. I am. I'm trying to fix this sound for
Uh oh.
Kendra. That's why I went back to webcam only. Do you hear it
Oh
now?
no. Hi, Kendra.
Can y'all hear that on the stream? Does it come on? That sound whenever I do the follow thing? You don't
I
hear it,
cannot
do you?
I cannot hear it.
Okay. I have no idea why. I'm so sorry. Well, that's why no one's commented, I guess, because nobody can hear it.
Oh,
So yeah. Keep talking while I'm
we
fiddling with this.
okay. We love when audios decides and technology decides to be difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, so vacation has been nice, and I'm just overall ready for this to be the rest of my life. Can I retire yet? That's what I'm actually
You
asking
haven't even
before I start
started, girl. You haven't
before
even
I start my
started.
career.
So no.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Gosh, I was hoping I could avoid the whole working thing and just be a. I think I doubt it because I'm not the kind of person who would want to be the rich man's wife that just like has the dramatic robes.
Yeah.
But I would love to just be that also. In a just be like a housewife, but not actually have to do any of the housewife stuff. Just be like rich and living off of somebody else. That would be wonderful.
Gosh. That does sound great.
So, it's every person's dream, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. And another favorite thing, since you're still twiddling with that, is have you seen Sugar Rush on Netflix?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a baking show. It's wonderful. It's a competition kind of. It's very like Chopped, but not Chopped, but it's all desserts. And so you have like four couples, partners contesting or competing against one another each episode. And they have to make these ridiculous desserts. So like the first round is cupcakes.
Oh
The
my
second
gosh.
round is then
By the way,
confection.
so sorry to stop you. I can't fix it right
Oh,
now. I'm so sorry. I'll have to fix that later. I have no idea why. I thought the sound was playing the whole time because it plays for me. So,
oh
I didn't know y'all
no.
couldn't hear it.
Sorry guys.
Yeah, so sorry. I'll have to fix that later. It's too complicated to fix it right now. Sorry.
Seduce Bezos. Oh my gosh, Kendra, I wish.
Oh,
That's not true,
please.
it actually. No, actually we could just yeah. She's watching Queen of the South next. Oh no, she should watch Sugar Rush. It's amazing.
It sounds
That's all I'm
good.
saying.
So
And good.
I feel like in this kind of quarantine stuff, like I watched so much that I was interested in, and then I feel like it got to the point where it's like, well, what else to watch? And
Yeah.
and then and now it's kind of like, oh, now I have a ton of recommendations since I said that, so I just shouldn't have said anything. Trouble in Paradise is better. I mean, that's the newer game, right? But this is the one for the PC, so this is the one that's easy to stream. The other one, Trouble in Paradise, is for the Xbox only. There's no PC version of it, so harder to
Oh.
stream. But I still love this one. This is a good game.
Heart of Dixie. Oh, that is some wonderful CW trash TV right there. Sorry,
Oh my
Carrie.
gosh, yeah, it
Sorry.
is. I've watched the beginning of that, but that's as far as I ever got with that one. It was a little bit too much even for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Seduce then murder. Actually, that's much more my aesthetics. So thank you for suggesting that.
It's true.
Um, but anyway, Sugar Rush automatic. The third season. Why it's my favorite thing. The third season's come out, and I've only made it like 2 episodes in. But I just love watching other people make amazing desserts.
Yeah.
Knowing that I will never be able to taste something that looks so delicious.
Oh my gosh,
But
but watching it though and imagining like I could do that, you can't. But I
oh,
mean, it's nice to
I mean,
imagine.
I don't know what a profiterole is, but I'm sure I could make one.
Sure, why not?
So, but shall we dive into this topic that we have this week?
Yeah, yeah. What are we getting? So what are we talking about first? Because there's so much. There's so much when it
There
comes to
is.
getting started with role play, that we
So,
can go into. And I know that this is something that I talk about a lot on my channel, but we've never really talked about it on stream. And I am a huge believer in that. When you are talking about improving your role play experience and really anything, just getting one person's opinion is not enough. So I wanted to talk about this today because I wanted a chance for y'all to hear another opinion on this. So to bounce ideas off of Landon, because there's not just one right way, right? And what I talk about on my channel is like a lot of stuff that's worked for me, but that's not necessarily like what's going to work for everybody. So, having another opinion I think is super valuable.
I agree, and I think that we probably will have very similar opinions because we come from and are in the same area
Yeah.
of like RP, like we're in the same group, we mod together, everything. But if there are people in the chat or on Discord who want to talk about their experiences, I would love to hear them, even if it's just reading out loud what they're saying.
Yeah.
So be sure to, if you have opinions and advice, please give them so that we can have listeners get that advice.
Yeah,
But
please share.
I figured a good way of starting this would be to start big and go small. So starting with things like, what's it like to join a group? What do you need to do in order to integrate yourself into a new RP and everything like that? From looking for a new group, what ads you should go to, how do you become a part of the culture?
Mhm.
I think would be a good place to start.
Okay. So I definitely think when it comes to like, joining a new group or even like when you're doing one-on-ones and you get a new partner, spending some time really trying to like pay attention to what's going on and reading the room, I think is
Mm-hmm.
really useful. And I know it's like, it's not an easy skill, but I do feel like nowadays, for whatever reason, the kind of the old axiom on the internet of like lurk more has kind of gone away for a lot of people, and so I do think spending some time lurking is really valuable, and I see a lot of people kind of skipping that step.
Yeah, I'm not a huge. Well, okay, so what do you mean by lurking? Do you mean like sitting in silence and watching as things happen, or I'm like, for me personally, I'm a big fan of people who come into an RP and say hello
Oh
and
yeah, for
establish
sure.
that they want to be a part of this instead of just like watching idly by.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that watching can really come across as either disinterested or like someone who's just gonna ghost. Like that's the other
Yeah.
thing too, is that it's a really delicate balance. So by lurking, do you mean like that just watching, or do you mean like getting used to what the RP feels like by also interacting in with it?
I mean, I definitely mean you are going to have to interact, right? So like I don't think that it's reasonable to join an RP and do absolutely nothing. I think you really gimp yourself when you do that. I think you really you cut yourself out of like being able to fully engage. So I don't mean to say, when I say lurk more, I don't mean like just sit there in silence. But what I do mean is that you don't have to jump into every conversation, right? You don't have to
Mm,
come in with your hot takes. You don't have to like try to get the role play to cater to you immediately. Try to figure out, I think it's good to try to figure out a little bit about what's normal before you kind of like show your entire like everything, right? Because
yeah.
nobody has squeaky clean opinions on everything, right? Nobody is going to have like the perfect way of carrying themselves in every single situation, right? In every single role play with every single partner. So I think there is, like you said, a balance in the way that you kind of deal with that, right? So it's like, yes, you should interact somewhat, but I think that people make a big mistake when they come into a game and they're like, I'm just going to show the weirdest, craziest parts of myself immediately.
Mm,
Or I'm just going to show the most aggressive parts of myself immediately. I think that really, really screws you up, and
yeah.
I get why people do it. Like they want to kind of get that out of their system immediately to see if they'll fit in, but I think that like people are way more likely to accept those weird parts of you after they've also gotten to know the charming, kind parts of you. So I feel like people should like lead with that. Like don't lead with your craziest self immediately. Like give it a moment to see what exactly is acceptable, because it's going to be different in different situations.
Yeah, and I think impressions are important, right? They don't
Yeah.
make everything about the connections and relationships that you'll build within an RP group,
Mhm.
but how you present yourself within those first few interactions will define a certain level of how people view you. Whether it's
Absolutely.
commenting on everything, spamming a lot,
Mhm.
or being completely silent and not engaging in conversation at all. All of those send an impression to the group.
Yep.
I also think that along with the lurking is you also learn the you might not know the depth of the of the relationships happening with you in the RP, but you
Mm-hmm.
can definitely see how other players communicate with one another.
Yep.
Is there a little bit more hostility? Is there a little bit of tension? Is there just like people who are obviously very much enmeshed with one another and friends?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure with us sometimes we are intimidating, and we have had people join because we have been friends, or not join because we have been friends for so long,
Yep.
that it is very obvious that we all kind of mesh into each other, and it's kind of hard to break into
Yeah.
that,
People feel
which is not a
intimidated by that.
yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just is how we run our RPs. And
Mm-hmm.
for some people, they don't like that. They want to find a group that they can build themselves with that instead of joining an already established group.
Yep. And I can
Um,
understand that. Like I get
oh
when
yeah,
people feel that way, you know, because it's a when you join a group like that, you have to be ready for a large time investment, right? You have to be ready
yep,
for a large time investment to kind of get yourself established within that group. And some people just aren't up for that. You know, they're just not up for that kind of time investment. You know,
I also
they want to join a relatively new group of people that hasn't gone through all that yet.
yeah, exactly. I also think it's it's harder online than it would be in person. When you see a group of already established friends, you understand that the interpersonal dynamics there, that it's going to take time and effort for them to see you or know you the same way.
Yep.
Whereas with online, I think that wall is a little harder to understand and to get
Mm-hmm.
over, for people to sit there and be like, well, you guys are all good friends, why are you not treating me that same way?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling left out? Why is this? And it's because, yeah, you haven't been here for that long,
Mm-hmm.
but it is, you gotta start building those relationships in order to get somewhere.
Yep.
So I think lurking definitely gives you an insight into what kind of group this is and what the relationships are between people.
Yeah. And I
That
think
is,
that's really useful. At least I
yeah,
find it really useful. Like when I join a new server, even if it's not even like outside of role play, right? I'll spend some time just being really casual and chill and mostly reading and not necessarily contributing, but like contribute here and there to the conversation, right? So that they know who I am, but not like a huge amount. Because I don't know what the vibe is there yet, and I
yep,
don't know what exactly is acceptable there yet.
yes. Um, and you don't really know. You also don't know how you come across, right?
Yep.
That's the other thing too, is that who your persona is online can completely clash with somebody else's interpretation of that.
Yep.
I know that I am very, very sarcastic and witty, and I like to make a lot of jokes. Someone who doesn't know me might read that as incredibly rude and offensive
Yeah, because
if they
sarcasm
don't
doesn't
know
come
I'm
across
joking.
well online a lot of times.
Yeah, until you know a person that you're like, oh no, she's just being, an ass.
Yeah.
Um, but as I do, but yeah, it's incredibly important to like pick that sort of stuff up too, especially if you do want to make this a long term game, or you want to be as successful within the RP as possible.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So
Um,
that's kind of like my main tip, you know,
yeah,
my first main tip is like, you know, spend some time trying to figure out like this person you're about to RP with. Spend some time trying to figure out this group that you're about to join, because that's also going to tell you a lot of information about if it's for you or not, right? Because then if
yeah,
you spend some time observing and really thinking about what you're looking at, then you can much better figure out like if this is really for you.
yeah. I also think that also plays a lot into RP styles too, especially one on one.
Oh yeah,
To sit there and be like, how invested is this person?
yeah,
How much do they dedicate to plotting versus writing? How
yep.
much time do they have to have conversations like this? Do they want to be friends outside of the RP, or do they just strictly want to just talk about RP and do RP?
It's hard to
And
tell,
none of
right?
these,
Sometimes.
yeah, oh, 100%. And none of these have right or wrong answers. Every person's style is their person's style, and all of it is correct. But if
Yeah.
you're looking for someone who's going to be your friend outside of RP, but that person is just simply wants to do storylines, that's a good thing to observe and know and lurk when you're seeing that and
Mm-hmm.
starting to write with somebody.
Yeah, because not everybody's going to be interested in being friends. There are definitely role players out there that are really just interested in role playing and they don't want to talk to you, you know?
Yeah.
And then there's the
Yeah.
opposite too, where you have people that like they aren't really interested in role playing. Like they might say they
Yep.
are, right? But they're not really, right? Because when it gets down to it, all of a sudden they don't do it. So, you know, and knowing where you fall on that and finding out where the other person falls on that is really important.
Yeah, it's very important for the start of any sort of either within a group or one-on-one.
Yeah.
So, for me, for the next rule and advice is we kind of hinted on it, but I do not be passive.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I believe that the amount of plots you get is directly correlated to how much you have put yourself out within a group RP.
Yep.
Which means that if you are quiet and don't engage in conversation, especially if it's a conversation heavy RP, you're not going to get plots. People are
Mm-hmm.
not going to. The sad thing is that people will not know who.
And they're just not going to
And
think about it, you know?
they're
They're just
not.
not going to
Yeah,
think about it.
they're going to RP. Like if there is things happening in the chat rooms that are dedicated to like just conversation and stuff like that, and someone suggests something for the RP plots, and people jump on it, that's a missed opportunity that you didn't have because you don't engage in
Yep.
the chat side of an RP group.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
so
Kendra
that is
says
like,
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know, I get it. Like when it comes to being passive, like I get where that comes from. Like people are nervous, they don't want to do the wrong thing, you know. But I think that takes it too far the other way, right? So like
yeah,
we talked just a minute ago about like, you know, lurking more and making sure you understand and read the room and stuff like that, but you can't go so far the other way where all you do is lurk because then you come into a situation where you start feeling left out. And the truth is that's nobody's fault but your own. And we've experienced that as moderators when people
yeah,
have come to us that have been like, well, I've never felt welcome in your RP. Nobody wants to RP with me. And then you ask them like, oh my gosh, did somebody reject you? Did you reach out and someone say no? And they're like, no, I never reached out. And it's like, well, what do you freaking expect? Like, people aren't psychic. They don't know that you're feeling left out. Maybe they assume you're busy and just don't have a lot of time to role play, so they don't reach out. Like, they just don't know.
yeah. And no one, and like that's the other thing too is people are only going to want to put in as much effort as uh, as you are.
Yep.
So if you are constantly the person that needs to be reached out to or needs to be approached or anything like that, you're not going to receive as much as someone who is playing that back and forth and
Yep.
there's a reciprocity there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that is, I think, a very, very important rule with getting started is to put yourself out there if that is the sort of dynamic you want, because like we kind of said that there are people who are only there for RP and don't really want to know the people that they're RPing with, and
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. It just means that you are missing out on plots and that it's going to be harder for you to get involved.
Yep. Because at the end of the day, like it's just like with anything else. It's about networking. You know,
Yes.
like you can be like the most amazing, awesome role player ever, but if you don't spend that time networking and trying to make friends, like you're just not going to get as much role play, and that's true. You know, it's true for role play just like it is for anything else. You know, people want to
Yes.
work with you because not just because you produce good work, but because you're cool and chill and they like you. Like it's both, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think also it's a lot easier to RP, and at least it's my style, to RP with someone that you know and like than someone that is just there to RP.
Yep.
But then again, that's me.
Yeah, but I mean, some people feel the opposite, and that's why I think
Yeah.
doing a little bit of lurking and reading the room is important because knowing the person that you're about to RP with a little bit, knowing the space you're about to jump into, and trying to make that decision of if is this really worth my time is like an important step.
Yes.
And that kind of brings me to like another piece of advice that I think is really important is to not get trapped in a sunk cost fallacy. Like I see this happening all the time. Like people don't want to leave a role play or they don't want to cut off a partner because they've been role playing for 6 months or whatever, you know, like it's a significant time investment. And so they get really like into that idea. And it's like, but is it fun anymore? Like, if it's not fun anymore, what the hell are you doing? Like, just move on. Like, it's not a big deal. You'll find other role plays. Like, you don't have to stay with something if it's not fun anymore.
Yep. It I think that a lot of people feel, I mean, I know you said sunken cost, but I think a lot of people feel like, oh my gosh, I've given my time and energy to this, it'll get better.
Yeah.
Um, Groups don't change.
No. If it's not working for you, it's not working for you.
It is, yeah, it's a lot easier, I think, to change a one-on-one partnership because that other person might be going through something, or there might be a stint or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay. I think that's a lot easier to change. But an entire group, you will not change the culture of that
Nope.
group.
Nope. So
Get out.
if your impression is like these people are toxic, I don't like them, I don't get along with them, like just leave because they're not going to change. They're
Yeah.
not going to change for you. You know, if they do change, it's because, you know, people that have been there and that are okay with the culture, you know, start pointing these things out, not because you brand new person is changing their minds. Like you brand new person, like nobody cares. Nobody cares what your opinion is. Like that's just the truth. When you're brand new, nobody cares what your opinion is, right? Oh
Yep.
yeah, so Kendra says there's a hostage situation there too. Yeah, can you? Yeah, definitely. Can you expand on that, Kendra? What you're talking about there? It sounds like maybe you have a specific story of something
Yeah,
that
I have.
happened.
I think I know what you mean, but I really want to know more of the like hostage on it too.
Yeah,
But and the other thing too to keep in mind that if you are staying because of the sunk cost idea, uh, it will not grow on you. It will not get better. In fact, you will get worse.
yeah,
The likelihood of you adapting and changing your style to fit the groups um, will be large, and
yeah,
which means you will be part and contributing to the things that you think is toxic, and
yeah,
then you will bring that baggage and those patterns uh, to other RPs, other groups, and stuff like that. Not saying that that's how you're going to be forever, but that is part of the experience of being in bad groups. We've all gone through that.
yep. That's been my experience too. Like it never like gets better. If I have bad vibes from a group, then it kind of just stays that way. And like I'm not saying that that's like a universal experience, but I do think it's a pretty common experience.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll read what Kendra said. In one-on-one, there can be a feeling of if you stop a plot that you aren't feeling anymore, then you'll hurt your partner's feelings. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes into a little bit of that sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, oh, I'll hurt their feelings, so I'll just stay. Maybe it'll get better. But like,
Yeah.
you don't know that. You don't know if it's gonna get better. Oop, what did we get? Oh, a new cat. We don't
Yeah.
actually want him in this particular
Oh
one,
no.
but we're gonna sell
Out.
him. But I do love these guys. They're so cute.
They are very cute. Yeah, no, I think that that is 100% that we, of course, as people and writers, and because we're writers, for the most part, very empathetic people, don't want to hurt the other person on the side of the screen.
Yeah.
I think that is incredibly normal. But if it is not what you want, you don't owe it to anybody to stay.
Yeah, like this is a hobby, right? Like this isn't a job. This isn't, you know, this isn't your family. Like there's no reason you should feel like you owe it. Like now that doesn't mean that I'm saying that like it's good to just bail, right? I do think that
Yeah,
if you have the capacity to tell somebody like, "Oh, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm so sorry." Like you should tell them. But I don't think like this is a hobby, right? And it's supposed to be fun. And if you're not having fun, like that's important too. It's not just about the other person. It's about you too.
yes. Um, and that you are also not responsible for that person's feelings or mental health, right?
No,
Like,
not in that way anyway. I mean,
yeah,
that's
not
not a license to be mean, right? But like telling someone I'm not interested in role playing anymore, like that's not mean.
yeah, though that's not mean. That there's a huge difference between being spiteful and cruel and sitting there and being like, I just you have changed, I have changed, we're not here for it anymore.
Yeah, it's not working.
Or this isn't working at all. Like it's not what I thought it was. I thought we were going to do this thing, and I thought our characters would mesh in this way, and it actually turns out that my muse isn't connecting to this.
Yeah, like it's not working for
I,
me.
I'm not always a big, huge proponent to blaming muses as if they're like people themselves, but it can be useful if you sit there and go, "This is not what the story I want to tell."
Yeah. I mean,
I also, oh, go ahead.
yeah, and I think that that can be an easy it can be an easy way to let someone down. Like if you do have a partner
Yeah,
that's really sensitive, you can kind of do like it's not you, it's me type of thing by saying like my muse just isn't into this, and I just don't have the capacity for this anymore, something
Yeah.
like that. So Kendra had a good comment. Learning that is one of the best things a person can do, because getting stuck in an RP relationship you don't want is awful. Yeah, it's the same thing as like trying to date somebody that you don't really want to date,
Yeah.
or trying to maintain like a best friends level
A
friendship with
friendship.
someone you don't really want to do that with. It's not reasonable to expect that of people.
This is another level of boundary. You need to have boundaries about yourself, and that comes from friends, relationships, RP, anything like that. That if something is not sitting right with you, you have the right to sit there and be like, you know what, this isn't working.
Yep.
And you are not indebted to anybody, or they should not feel owed to your time, because most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people in situations like that will sit there and be like, okay, that sucks, but I understand.
Yeah.
And then the people who aren't like that are probably people you shouldn't have in your lives or don't want to have in your life.
Yeah, like that's like if they're not accepting you saying like I'm not feeling this anymore, I'm so sorry. Like if they do the thing where they try to beg you back, like then to me that's just even more proof that you made the right decision. And at least in my experience, and I have had a lot of experiences where partners try to beg you back, or
Yep.
or cry about it, or get really unreasonably upset about it. And at that point, like it's okay to not respond. Like you don't have to respond just
Yeah.
because someone sends you a message. If they send you a message that sounds like really distressed and like not reasonable and not okay, like it's okay to just walk away from that conversation for a little bit and come back later. Or like if they really will not leave you alone, like if it becomes like a really serious harassing situation, like it's okay to press block. Like it's okay. Like it
Yes.
sucks, and it probably does mean that you're not going to be able to rekindle that relationship in the future, but you just have to prioritize that and think about that when it comes to your role play relationships. Because it
Yeah.
shouldn't it shouldn't be like that. Like you shouldn't feel like you have to like go on with something that's not right for you anymore.
Yeah. I will admit that I have been that partner, right? That gets really attached to a storyline, and I don't think I've ever gotten upset to the point where I've begged someone back or I've like cried if someone left. But getting attached to your characters and storyline and getting excited about something is completely normal.
Oh yeah.
Um, but if that person, and so being that person, or being the quote unquote bad guy, the person building the boundaries and saying, "Hey, I'm done with this." Being that person does not make you a bad person just because that person has an emotion over it.
Yeah.
They need to, however, handle their emotions properly and not put it on you, because it's also not your fault that they're having their emotions.
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation, right? Like you can't click with
Yeah.
everybody all the time. Even somebody that you've clicked with for a long time, up until then. Like if stuff happens where you're not clicking anymore, then you're not clicking anymore, right? And you need to
Yeah.
figure that out. And that might mean taking a break.
Yeah. And there are a lot of like delicate situations with this. I know that it could be RP partners in general that you are connecting with and being like for the first time writing with someone. Also, another part of like the hostage situation could be that there is a particular ship that you're no longer feeling, but you have other plots or other things with that person, and feeling like you, because you have other things with that person, you are now tied to and forced to do this ship that you are not feeling.
Yeah.
Just know that that's not true.
Yeah. You really just
You can
you maybe you still like that person, you just don't want to write this particular thing anymore.
and you can build that boundary and say that, and also know that most of the time people will respect that.
Yeah, most of the time they will. And if they don't, like, and you can't force the other person to, right? Like if they
Yeah.
have
Oh,
a
absolutely not.
ridiculous reaction that's not reasonable, like, well, you can't stop that. So, you can't stop them from doing that. So, it's something that you have to handle when it happens.
Yep. RP 101, learn how to set boundaries. I'm going to
Yeah.
say life 101, learn how to set boundaries. That
Yeah.
is that this particular piece of advice will help you far outside of RP. You can do it with friendships, you can do it with relationships, you can do it with work even. That if
Mhm.
you're not feeling something, or something is making you feel uncomfortable, you're allowed to express that.
Yeah.
Um, so
You
yeah,
absolutely are.
that's That's my take on the idea of getting started within a group RP. I think that that was the main pieces of advice that we had.
Yeah.
The three main pieces.
Yeah, so
I
the
think
yeah,
I
so the
think
three main
also
pieces is just to kind of reiterate. It's to spend some time reading the room. You know, don't think about just yourself. Think about like what's acceptable in that space or with that person that you're talking to. And the other one is, but don't take it too far and be passive, because that's not going to get you any interactions, right? And then make sure that you know what your own boundaries are and that you set them. And you know, I have a lot of videos on my channel about this. So if any of this spoke to you guys and you feel like you need a little bit more, like every single one of these things has a video on my channel where I dive into that topic specifically.
yeah, exactly. Um, and I think overall that's kind of what you need to know.
Yeah, like that's really like 101 stuff, and none of it really and it's funny, none of it has to do with actual role play, right? None of it does.
Yeah, that is very true. And also like for those of us, I know that we're going to have a whole topic about like social awkwardness in RP and everything like that. But for those of us who have that shyness and nervousness, note that starting and that first impression is really the hardest part.
Yeah.
Everything after that is so it you grow into it and it's okay. It's getting over that first step. And I'm going to say that about starting any of these topics. The hardest thing about any of this is actually doing that first step and starting.
Yeah,
It's actually joining that group. It's saying hello. It's all of that.
yeah, for sure. It's the proverbial, it's like the social, you know, proverbial staring at the blank page. Like that's the
Yeah,
hardest part before you make that first line, you know.
exactly. So just go on and keep all of this in mind, but just know that if you start, you'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's move to our next idea. So you've joined the group and everything like that. You've settled in. How do you build a new character?
Yeah. So this a lot of times you have to do when it comes to groups, a lot of times you have to build a character beforehand. Even when it comes to one-on-one, sometimes the way that you get the one-on-one interaction is by already knowing a lot about your character. So and role play, you know, of course, unless you're doing some kind of self-insert type of thing, which is fine, but I'm not. That's not like my experience, right? So I can't really comment too much on that. But if you're not doing that, then you're going to be making some kind of character, right? Like that's you have to be able to interact. Because you're not, you know, you're not being yourself, or you're being like yourself, but in some kind of fantastical world or something like that. There's going to be some element of character that has to happen.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
what's your first tip on character creation, Landon?
Um so I think that this is a useful tip for someone who's already established the idea of the story. So I think that it's more set for group than necessarily one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's where do they fit into the RP? You
Mm,
have to keep that in mind. Is sitting there and being like, okay, what does the story, group, or RP need that I can fill that hole?
mm,
Because that does a lot with making it so that people don't copy other ideas that already are existing. That they don't retell stories that have already been told,
mm-hmm.
and that they create something new because of that as well.
Yeah.
And something that will move the story forward. And therefore, if you're moving the story forward or expanding upon it, you're kind of guaranteed engagement,
Yes.
which I think is also very important.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that is my thing is to do that. And I think with group RPs, there are multiple ways. At least for us, we have characters that we are actively looking, archetypes that we make that sit there and go, if you don't have any ideas, here are kind of half filled out sheets of characters that you can build upon and put your own spin on
Mm-hmm.
that we need within the RP.
Yep. And if a role play doesn't have something like that, I think it's good to ask for it. Like ask what's needed in the
Oh
role
yeah.
play. And honestly, if they don't have any kind of answer for that, that's almost like a red flag to me, right? Because it makes me wonder like, well, maybe they're not really thinking about their story in the way that I would be thinking about it, because I'm very, very
Yeah.
story focused person. So if they don't really, if like the mods and the regular players don't have a lot of good ideas on that, makes me start to think like, I'm not sure they're really doing the same thing I'm doing when it comes to role play. Like maybe this is not for me. So yeah, I find that really useful. And I kind of think that that's useful for one-on-one as well. Like when it comes to your character, you making sure that it's something that plays off of your partner is really good. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Like a really hard to communicate with, like somebody that plays their cards close to their chest, type of really like gruff dude is a great protagonist for like a detective novel, but not so much for role play, right? Because they
Yeah.
can't play off the other person. So I think it's important to when you're talking about one-on-one role play to think about how your character fits in with the other character, and don't be afraid to like incorporate things into your character just because you know it would be a good foil or complement to this other character that you're going to be playing with.
Yes, exactly. And that if you do really want to play that rough character type, that silent and stoic, you need to make up for that in already built story so that you know where that's going,
Yep.
so that you can develop that more,
Yeah, like
so
you
that
need to
he
be able to
doesn't
explicitly tell your partner, this is how you get him to open up, and like have a
yeah.
roadmap for them instead of like playing, oh, they have to try to figure it out. Like that's not fair and that's not fun.
No, it's not fun. No, absolutely not. It's not fun in real life. Why would I want to do that in as
Right?
a
Like I'm not going to
as
put
a
that much effort into trying to make friends in reality. I mean, I guess unless the person really had something to offer me, but most people do not, you know.
yeah, exactly. Like just tell me where to hit it, and I will crack tough nuts to crack, but I need a roadmap.
Yeah.
And my characters do as well. So
Mhm.
having that, I also wanted to expand upon something I said earlier, that as a RPer, you come in, and if the RP doesn't have, ideas of characters that they need, um,
Hey
I want to say
Thumper.
that as a hi Thumper, I want to say as a mod, it makes me so happy when I see a new person, or not even a new person, when I see a person in general ask and be like, what do we need?
Yep.
It makes me so excited
Yep. Me
for
too.
that app
It's like,
automatically. I'm like,
yes.
they're thinking about it. They know they want to get involved and actually add to this story and characters. Heck yeah, let's go for it. It automatically pumps me up. So just know that if you are starting from a mod's perspective, asking that question 9 times out of 10 will make a mod extremely happy.
Yep, it always makes me really happy because it's like proof that they want to engage, and it's like, yes, please.
Yes, please, we love it. So I think that is a huge part of everything. Um,
Oh my gosh,
sorry,
we
something
cannot
just
have a
stepped
tavern
in.
in the 12th dimension so everyone can have someone brooding in the dark corner, right? Like, oh my
Yeah,
god, how many corners did this tavern have?
listen, I love a broody character. I do, and I love the trope of, like, broody character, and then character who is sunshine, making them like just open up. It's one of my favorite tropes to read. I've I've written it a little bit before. It's great. Not everyone can play that.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, I love, playing Hey Elijah with Naomi. I don't know if Naomi's still listening anymore, but I love it for that reason. I mean, that's what we're doing, right? But at
Yeah,
the same time, like she doesn't make it hard. Like when
yeah,
so one of I just can I'll speak for her for a second. One of the ways that she makes sure that this trope still works is she makes it so that, whatever I do as I'm playing Haley, like it works, right? When she
yes,
sees me writing things that are clearly me having my character put in effort to try to make this work, she just makes it work. Like, right? She doesn't be like, oh, that's not going to work on him. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm putting in effort, then it works, and that's a really
yes,
great way to still make that trope fun and memorable, and something that I can engage in, so that it doesn't become like I've spent all this time trying to crack this nut and it's not working and it's not fun anymore. You know?
yeah, exactly. And that that feels like wasted energy. Like I hate personally as a writer walking away from a thread that felt like nothing in it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times those that if a thread is a character trying to break open another person, like another character, and get to know them emotionally, and that character refuses all the way up until the end, it it feels like nothing happened.
Yeah, it's like, what
You
was I doing here? What was the point of this?
unless you really want to start like an enemy ship with me.
Yeah. I
In
mean, but
which
that's a
case
whole
my
different thing.
character, yeah, my character walking away hating your character because he's got to stick up his ass.
I mean,
I
that's an
will
option.
I will gladly write that. But anything else than that, I'm just kind of like, nothing happened. Why did we write it?
Yep.
So, but that's my own personal thing.
Yep.
Um, so with the kind of going along with this, when you're thinking about what the RP needs, I think it's also vastly important when making a new character and starting this idea is that you already have a plot idea in
A little
in
bit,
hand.
yeah.
I'm not saying that you need to know the entire story arc of your character. I'm not saying that you need to have it set in stone and go, this is the way it's going. But you kind of need to have an idea of where you would like to take this character, even if no other characters within the RP are involved. Like nothing is set in stone. Just trying to sit there and be like, hey, an example, I would like this character for that is affiliated to Styx, who is a faction in our mob RP, to become a member of EOS, who is the like
The rebels.
Antifa, the rebels of our RP. I want that plot line to happen. Just knowing that is enough,
Yeah.
but you need to know something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I really do think like having some idea of where you want to take your character is really really important. You don't have, and you don't have, it shouldn't be set in stone. Like things are going to change. You're going to change your mind, and that's all good. But like you have to have some kind of idea, because just expecting it to happen to you, I don't think is reasonable in most role play situations. To go back to the brooding characters for a moment, we had a
Yeah,
comment. Do you think people favor brooding characters because they're not sure how to role play? Maybe they're better at reacting to things instead of being proactive. 100%. I think playing a brooding character for a lot of people is an excuse to be passive. 100%. I do think that. It's an excuse for them to be able to be like, oh, well, I don't have to put in the effort because my character is dark and I don't think that's right. Like, I don't think that's right. And that kind of brings me to a tip that I have when it comes to making characters. I think it's important to focus on making a character that people are gonna like. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, yes, you do have to think about like what you want for the character and the arc that you want for the character, because at the end of the day, it's your character, right? So that you have to be happy with them. But like putting effort into thinking, are the people I'm about to go role play with gonna like this character? I think is really critical, and I think a lot of people spend too much time thinking about what they want instead of making a character that other people are going to want. You know?
yeah, I agree. I think also Thumper said something about
Oh,
the brooding character that I think kind of adds to that. She said, I think people are attracted to brooding characters because mystery invites others to be interested in what they have going on in the background. But sometimes people don't add things like kindness, compassion, humor, and other characteristics to motivate finding that out.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you were saying as far as like you also need to make that character interesting to other people
Yep.
and be like, oh, this is the character I want to play, but who also wants to play with my character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can't
So
expect other people to do that work. You can't expect other people to bring out the kindness and the humor in your character. Like you have to bring that out. You have to, jump on the chance when you see a character making a little bit of effort to crack your character, that you let them crack it. Like that
yeah,
has to be something that you do.
exactly. Um, and so I think that's a great thing to keep in mind when starting this idea as well.
Absolutely.
So I think another important thing is this is with multiple characters. This I wrote this tip with multiple characters in mind.
Okay.
That you're playing multiple characters, you're wanting to make a new character. How you need to keep in mind how do you make that character different from the other characters, both in style, personality, and writing.
Oh, I
Because a
see.
lot of the times, the more characters people get, a lot harder it is to differentiate because we as human beings like to be lazy.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
guilty of this, to sit there and be like, no, I need to, each character kind of has to have a quirk, or I need to write these characters in very different ways. And so I think when making a new character, you have to think actively about that separation.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that is really unique to like joining groups that allow multiple characters, because not even every
Yes.
group does. Like a lot of groups, you only get to play one character when you join, and in a one-on-one, sometimes you're only really playing in one character, but sometimes you're not, like, right? Like sometimes you're
Yep.
playing multiple characters in a one-on-one, sometimes you're joining a role play that allows multiple characters. And in those situations, like I totally agree. You need to think about like what is different between your different characters, because otherwise, because you're the same writer, right, and you already have like your similar writing voice, um, you can cause for other people to struggle to understand like what the difference is when it comes to that particular character, and they start to get your individual characters confused, and I've definitely experienced that on both ends, where like I've not differentiated characters enough, and also where I have not done the work to make sure others can differentiate my characters, and that's part of why like I keep bringing certain characters back over and over, because I know them very well and I know how they're different. I know when I've got like a new character that I'm kind of setting up, it's a lot harder and to do that, and I will spend. I'll end up like having they end up sounding like similar characters that I've played, because they're newer and I haven't really fully figured out what it is I want to do with them. Yeah, so Thumper says it's tough to keep distinct voices between two characters. That's why I give mine wild accents as a cheat code. Honestly, I think that's a great cheat code. I really, really do. Like giving them a weird pattern of speech, whether that's an accent
Yep.
or whether that's like, this person speaks very formally, or whether they really love a certain word and they use it over and over and over. Like
Ooh, that's
that
a
is
good
such a
one.
valid cheat code. Like it really, really is.
My cheat code is the basis of it is a physical action,
Mm.
whether it be a smirk, running your hair, a biting lip, running hand through their hair. It is a something that happens that grounds me into that character and is like, oh right, I'm writing James or I'm writing Rab. And I have to keep that very much in mind, and that helps like ground me as far as like being, oh, there's a cheat code.
I like it, like giving them a specific like physical.
Yeah.
I guess I want to say tick, but that's not the right word. Like I don't mean a tick, but like a physical thing that they do all the time.
Yes, absolutely. A habit or whatever.
Yeah, a
As a
habit. That's
writer,
the word I'm actually looking for. Not tick, a habit.
um, as a writer, it just is that it's that as I'm writing it and being like, oh, it's James playing with his hair.
Yep.
It just gives me that automatic grounding of being like, oh, it's also James. So he has these massive curls. So he's also doing other things with them. And how is he standing? It is that thing that just reminds me about that. But when I'm building a character, I try to pick one thing
That
for each
physicality.
character that just helps me remind, yeah, that's a physicality that helps remind me as a writer and being like, okay, how can I differentiate this?
Yeah.
Rabistan smirks all of the time.
Yeah.
Owen grins. Like it can be even just the different word, but that will help me as a
I like that.
writer.
I like that a
Just
lot.
fun facts.
Because it is hard. It's harder to differentiate when you're talking like vague things like motivation and
Yeah.
attitude and stuff like that. But if your mind ends up associating certain vocal things or certain physical habits to like that the motivations of that character, then it becomes so much easier.
Yes, it does. And I think it's playing multiple characters, I also acknowledge is a learned skill.
Mm-hmm.
No one is good at that to begin with.
Oh my God, no.
Um, I cannot tell you how many characters I have been writing that have blended together at some point with another character. That
Yep.
I'll just sit there. It happens even now, where I'll sit there and I'll look at the response and I'll be like, "Am I writing Rab or am I writing Phoebe?" I'm so confused. Characters vastly different. However, you couldn't tell with the response I just gave.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely feel that for sure. And one
So
thing I think that kind of like comes, lends itself to is another tip when it comes to characters that I think sometimes we forget is to not be afraid to let that character change. Like you can come up with something,
Yeah.
like your initial idea just might not work. Like you might have thought that it worked, but then once you actually start writing the threads, it turns out it doesn't. And like being willing to make small changes to that character to make them work, I think is super valid. Like I know some people get really stuck on, but my character is this, and it's like, but why? You know, if your character isn't having the kinds of interactions you want them to have, if you don't feel like you're doing with them what you wanted to do, then who cares what that character is, you know, quote unquote supposed to be, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be open to making small changes to a character to make them work.
I think that happens in all stages of playing a character.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if we're talking about starting, I think that that also happens in character creation.
Oh yeah.
Like, not even after you've developed this character and created it, and then you started playing it and realized it doesn't fit perfectly. I know a lot of people are very much like, this is my character that I play. I play Elijah Michelson, and this is how he is, and this is what it is, and this is what I want to play, and I want to bring him into this RP. How can I do that? Being able to sit there and be like, okay, well, he has to adapt in some way. I don't know why I'm using Naomi's character when I have examples of my own, but that's what I did. Anyway,
Well, I think
um,
when you played Gemini
yeah,
in that role play, like that was a really good example. Like she started out as basically this robot, and then she turned into something that was a little bit more like, you know, she wasn't so robotic anymore. But she more of her personality was like that she got hyper fixated on certain things, right?
yes,
And that
exactly.
became and that worked much better than her initial kind of robotic persona. And Thumper
Yeah.
has a good comment about Jawa
Mm.
in Magic Reborn, right? She went from an ice queen trying to kind of get better at what she was doing into like this power hungry, right, person that ended up helping out the main villain of the role play quite a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's another good example of like the opportunity was there for her to do this instead, and with a small tweak it worked great. So like let's make that tweak and do it, you know?
Yeah. And well, like, and you can do that as it can lend itself to helping you plot by doing
Mm-hmm.
that, to sit there and be like, okay, I want to make this active change in this character, so how can I get from point A to point B?
Yep.
But also in the character creation itself, and sitting there and being like, this personality is just not going to fit with the RP. It's okay to change that. It's okay to change and form before you even join the art, or before you even start writing the character, to sit there and
Mm-hmm.
be like, let's take something that was a character and make it an OC.
Mm-hmm.
That having that little bit of transgender or transition is totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think a lot of writers, especially when they are scared of writing OCs, um, make are really nervous about that, of really changing from the original version, or what they view as the original version of a character.
Yeah. But the truth is, like, nobody's going to care. Like, most people aren't
Yeah.
even going to notice. And if they do notice, if what you're doing now is working compared to what you were doing before, like, they're not going to care. They're just going to be glad that you've got something working.
Yep. Exactly. And that it fits better. Like, I will 10 times out of 10 take a character that is slightly different from the original inspiration, that
Mm-hmm.
fits better into the plot, than something that is trying to truly stick to the character was exactly within its show or movie or book, that doesn't fit into the plot. I will take the adaptation any day.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and I think that that's a real skill is making yourself like internally making yourself okay with those changes to that character when it's necessary. Like recognizing that okay, I need to do this, and then going and doing it. I think
Yes.
that's a really useful skill when it comes to role playing.
I think that we, as like a role play culture, kind of lend to that original fear being developed, because I think that there is a part of the community, at least when I was in the Tumblr game, that was very hateful on OCs,
Oh yeah, that
and
was true.
very much like, if you create an OC, I like, even in fan fiction, I read that there's going to be an OC, and I sit there and I go, oh God, why? When that's so
What if
not
they're
fair.
bad?
It's because I read My Immortal, and it was so terrible that it just, took me off of OC forever. If you haven't read My Immortal, it's a Harry Draco fanfiction. It's the worst written fanfiction in the world,
Oh my
and
god.
it has won that award. But anyway, It's like this idea of OCs as this created character is going to automatically be bad or self-inserty, and so I think that a lot of the community has like internalized that and
Mm-hmm.
still feels very much like I can't make an OC because no one will like it.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily true, right? That's not
Not at all.
necessarily true. But I
I
do
love
think that
OCs.
there's that you if you make an OC, like you do have to work a little harder because that stigma exists, and that stigma exists for a reason, right? Like it doesn't
Yep.
come from nowhere. People aren't being like unfair or anything. It comes from a place of like when you make your first couple of characters, they're probably going to be bad. And that's
Yes.
just true. Like so it's a little bit of self-cringe too, I think, when you get to the point where you know what you want and you're role playing well and things like that, and you remember all the horrible, awful OCs that you made once upon a time, you know.
Self-insert.
So, and you're like, gosh, I hate that I subjected people to that. I don't want to interact with an OC because they're probably gonna suck like mine did, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, yeah, flashback to my RPs at age 11. Exactly. Exactly. So, I think that there's a little bit of self cringe in there. But I also find that when you find somebody that's good at making OCs, that's made a really good OC, those end up being like the best, most favorite characters, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not hampered by canon. So one of my little
Yep.
cheats for this that I love to do is to find a character that's mentioned basically in name only in the canon text. And so they're not an OC. They're not an OC. They don't have that OC smell on them. But I get to do whatever the hell I want now, and
I
nobody gets to tell me otherwise. So that's like my little cheat code for you guys that are making OCs and trying to deal with that OC stigma. Find a character that's technically canon, but that the author didn't spend much time on, and there you go. Here's your OC that's not an OC anymore.
Yeah, you taught me that one, and I am super grateful for it.
It's wonderful, right? It's like such a hack, but it works.
Yeah,
It works.
but it works. Um, as Thumper says, my character now.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, they're mentioned only once, and you only get this one small detail about their backstory. Perfect. I'm just gonna do everything with them.
My favorite thing on that was so I picked up a character, Rabiston, as I call him. But of course, that name is actually not pronounced right.
Nope.
But I was like, I'm gonna pronounce it Rabistan, and it was an original character from a series. But you had been like, yeah, you played it more than the author originally played it. That you get to pronounce that name however.
Yep.
And I was like,
He's yours
thank you,
now.
Karen.
He's yours now.
Mine.
That's my trick for that.
Yes. So it's a wonderful little trick. And I think also, if you want to play OCs, you should be able to do it one on one. But I think within groups,
Hmm.
especially on Discord, OCs are kind of the standard at
Yeah.
this point. I think that OCs fit so much better because it's a lot harder unless you're playing. Well, I mean, and even then, when we had like our Disney RP, they're technically not OCs, but they
Yeah, but
were
they are.
because we developed them for that world. So I think that if you really want to stretch those muscles, especially if you've never made an OC before, go into groups. Figure, no one will blame you for learning, and no one will like be angry at you for trying to try new things, new kinds of characters, kind of like we
Yeah,
said last week.
I agree. Um,
Yeah, there are OCs in cosplay, 100%.
yeah, so there was a good question. I'm sorry, for whatever reason, the color of your name, like I can't read it on my screen. Um,
Is it
so
Hazazak?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm gonna
So
say it's
the
Zach.
question was for most role playing of the types. Oh, shoot, I pressed the wrong button. For most role plays of the type you're talking about, a world with established characters, then I'm a writer and tabletop role player, so OCs are all I ever use. Yeah, I mean, there's role plays that
Yeah.
there's only original characters, and that's all you ever have. I think what kind of sparked this conversation is we've both had experiences in like the Tumblr fandom role play spaces, and in those spaces that's where you kind of get this little bit of OC stigma. But there's plenty of role play spaces where everyone's expected to have an OC and it's all good, you know.
Yep.
And so it's if you're interested in those spaces, then you're not going to have that type of problem.
Yeah, and like I said, I think with group RPs, those are spaces I think that most people in Atlantis would not assume that the people in Atlantis are not always OCs. Like
Oh yeah.
the fact that Elijah exists, they would be like, oh, well, I mean, I just assumed that they were characters and you liked those faces.
Yeah, I mean he was adapted. He was
He
adapted
was
to that.
adapted.
Like
Yeah,
so in the context of that role play, like he is an OC.
exactly. So, I think that's what I've got for new characters, and create and character creation as far as starting that process. Do you have anything else? I think that I covered the plots that or the points that you wanted to make too.
I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Yeah, so I mean that's like my main things is kind of think about how that character fits in, with either the
Yeah.
group or the person that you're role playing, and and you know don't be afraid to make changes if they don't. Like there's nothing that says you have to do exactly what you originally planned to do.
Yeah, and Summer made a good point that I don't think we said directly about the OC thing. That OC stigma and fandom was big mostly because there was this idea of in self insert shipping.
Mm-hmm. And people don't
Um,
like that for whatever reason.
yeah, and I think it was because I think also this idea of self inserts uh, comes from a place that most people think self inserts means inexperience because you're not as adept to building characters and things like that. So I
Yeah,
think that in itself, the idea of disliking self inserts is very stigma-y too.
yeah.
Not saying it's bad, not saying you can't do it, um, but I think that is a lot of what the feelings are around it.
Well,
Which,
I know for me personally, like I don't have a lot of interest in interacting with self inserts because when you have somebody that's got a self insert, it you might experience a lot of character bleed, right? Like you might be role playing with somebody
ooh,
that if your character hurts their character's feelings, then all of a sudden their feelings are going to be hurt, and I find that incredibly stifling as a role player.
yeah,
So you know,
Thumper just said the exact same thing where the when self insert gets rejected, they take it extremely personally,
yeah,
and a lot more character bleed, and that
yeah,
is 100% true.
yeah.
Um, although character bleed can happen with non-self inserts too, and
Oh,
we should
oh,
keep that in mind because
absolutely. Like
I
that's
feel
not
like
unique.
we should have a topic about characters. At some point, we need to talk about character bleed with
Oh
in
yeah,
depth.
yeah. We probably
Um,
do.
so we'll add that to the list of ideas. But yeah, I think that for new characters, just be aware, have them fit in. Um, don't be scared to adapt, to go different places, and have an idea of where you want to go with them.
Yeah, I think that's the main kind of like 101 character tips
Yes.
that we have. There's so much. Like I have a whole playlist on my channel when it comes to characters. Like there's so much you can do, you know, that goes beyond that. But I think that's kind of like the one-on-one. Did we talk
Yeah, I
about
think
writing
that's the
starters earlier in the topic list? We have not talked about writing starters yet, but next we're going to talk about plot, and I think that
yeah.
we can talk a little bit about starters in regard to plot.
It was on my list. Temper, why you steal my spotlight? Just kidding. I love you so much.
Nuh-uh. It's a good idea. It's a good
um,
idea.
it is. It's a great idea. When we'll definitely discuss that. So let's move on to plot then, and what the ideas of plot and how and where that leads to. So you have a new character, you've joined a new group. How do you plot? How do you get
Hmm.
started with that? And I think the first thing that I have to say is that you, as a person who wants to start plotting, better have some ideas.
Yep.
It's that simple. If you're like, I really want to plot and don't give me anything, I I I that just makes me not want to plot.
Yeah, like what am I supposed to do with that? Like, and I don't even think the idea has to be big. I just think you have to
Oh,
come with
absolutely not.
something. Like something, you know? I hate getting into these conversations that are like, you know, the birds from that Disney movie. I don't know, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know, what do you
Yeah.
want to do? Like I have that conversation every day already on what we want to have for dinner. I don't want to have it in role play where I'm supposed to be relaxing. You know what I mean? Now don't start that again. Yeah, exactly. Like I hate that conversation. I hate that conversation. Everyone hates that conversation. So,
Well,
you know, of course nobody's going to like it in role play. So I think like the dinner back and forth. Yeah, the dinner back and forth. Oh my God, I hate it so much. I don't care. I don't care. Just pick something.
it's kind of like, and I just like the cousin of that conversation, which is the, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to write with you. I read your character, knew I wanted to write with this character, and then does nothing from there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, did you actually care? Like, it just feels like you were blowing steam up my ass, and I got excited,
And then
and
it
then
turned out you
nothing.
actually didn't want to role play. You just wanted to, I don't know, there was you thought you were going to make a friend or something. Um
Yeah,
so and it's
I
like
understand. I understand that as a newbie and as, starting something with a total random stranger and someone that you've really just lurked and you followed all our instructions before, that like starting idea is is intimidating. And I think I'm not expecting the person who comes to me to start everything and have ideas right off the bat, but I expect a yes and sort of situation.
yes.
That if they're going to be like, okay, what do you want to do? And I say maybe they should meet by the docks, that the response should be, oh yes, and maybe they can do this, or maybe I'm looking for this sort of relationship,
Yeah.
or X, Y, and Z. You don't have to have the entire plot threat, planned out and threaded out and everything like that, but having sort of an and situation is really incredibly important to
Yeah.
plotting.
Yeah, so
Thumper
oh yeah,
says,
go for it. I was going to read what Thumper said too, but yeah, go for it.
I struggle hard when someone emojis my call and they have a character that I don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So for context for us, for our RP, we have starter calls, which basically means that you post something in a channel that says, "Hey, come play with my characters." Someone then emojis that starter call, and then you approach that person, or just write a starter for that
Mhm.
person. Um, I find for me, and I guess we can kind of start talking about starters at this point too,
Yeah.
that I find for me, I'm the kind of RPer that I want to have a plan. It, like I said, it doesn't have to be fully plotted out what their threat is going to be, but I want to make sure that I'm not kind of like what we discussed earlier, that this thread isn't just going to be me saying, and my character saying hi, your character saying hi, and us going nowhere.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily have that is not my favorite kind of RP. So I like to get in, and if someone emojis my starter, I will then hop into their DMs and be like, "Hey, what you thinking?"
Yeah.
Or what are you looking for as a writer? What is it that you want?
Yeah. So I guess I feel a little bit differently, and I guess I feel this way partly because of what I feel like my role as the admin is. So
Yeah,
I feel like, as the main admin, it is my responsibility that anyone that wants to role play with me, that I make sure that that happens, right? So, and that's like that is unique to me, right? As the main admin, it's not something that I think a lot of other people are going to feel that way. Um, so with that in mind, like I am 100% okay with random starters. Now, I will then in those situations where I message them and I'm like, "Hey, did you have anything in mind?" And they're like, "No, I just wanted, just anything is fine." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I throw up something random. Like I do expect a yes and in the thread cuz it probably
yeah,
if you do something like that, like I'm going to put in something that's at least a little bit dramatic, right? Like either my character is going to like straight up run into you, right? We'll do that little cheesy thing, or I'm going to do something like something that puts my character in a position for yours to be mad at them or vice versa for them to be mad at you. And I kind of expect like you know the person to kind of pick that up, right? So that's when it comes to like a situation where you're writing a starter. I think that if you aren't going to do that plotting, then the more dramatic the better, right? Like do the
yeah,
cheesy thing that sounds like too much, so that the other person has something to grab onto.
absolutely. And I think that is important to be able to write with every character,
Mm-hmm.
especially as you are the admin. Um, and I agree to an extent interactions and first meetings and stuff like that leads to possibly bigger plots. So I know for the most part that is good stuff. I just for me and my writing style, I'm like I really kind of want to have an idea of what I'm investing in. And
Yeah.
if you don't have ideas and if you're fine with anything, like I'm not gonna not write a starter, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there and be like, okay, cool, and then I will do that and throw everything into it and write a starter no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I like to be like, okay, what are we doing? What's going on? Hey, we've never written with these two characters together. what do we want their relationship to be? What did you have in mind? So, for and a great example is that Ginny and Katya were two characters within Atlantis. We hadn't written anything together. Katya was new, and I was just like, "Hey, what you looking for?" And she was like, "I don't know." And I was like, "How about they are, workout buddies?"
Yeah,
And then from there, we'll be like, "Oh, okay." And then what if they, like, that's all I need from there. But it's I think
just
it's
something, right?
just something to grasp onto. Make sure that I'm not gonna just like walk into a bar to a pretty character
Mm-hmm.
and
And I think
my own
that comes a little bit from
personal.
like where we are as writers,
Yes.
because you're like a full-time student, and I work
Yeah.
full-time and have that stuff. So like, there's only so many hours in the day to role play, and we want to make sure that that's spent on something valuable. Whereas, like, I'm sure there's people listening that are not in that situation, right? Like, either they're not working, or they're in high school, or they're part-time student or whatever. Like, they just have more time and more energy to dedicate to
Yeah.
roleplay. And I know back when I had more time and more energy to dedicate to roleplay, I was much more amicable to doing things that went nowhere and meant nothing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, and so I don't think that like having meandering role plays that do nothing is bad at all. Like, I think it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. But when it comes to like what I want to do, it doesn't always work, because I feel like I'm wasting my time, and I just don't have the time for that.
Exactly. I think it is important in that first, as mods and admin, that first interaction, because I
Yeah.
agree with you. If there's a new character, I do try to interact with that character,
Yeah.
even if I don't have a character that really is in mind that would like fit in with that character. I'm totally fine with doing that because I want that person, whether they be new to the RP or their character to be new, to be inclusive and have as many opportunities to floss as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
um, which I think is partially our job as admin and as admin and mod,
Mhm.
um, more than it is necessarily as someone who is a player within the RP.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just a player, I don't think you have any obligation when it comes
Yeah,
to interacting with everybody. I mean, I think that if trying to interact with everybody is probably a good thing, right? That's going to benefit you if you can do that. But I don't think you have an obligation in the way that like I have an obligation to do that.
exactly. Yeah, and you have even obviously an obligation than I do. I just try to sit there and be like, I guess I should be kind of responsible. I have to if I have
I
to.
mean, just a little bit, right? Just a little bit.
You mean I have to play nice? I guess. Let's talk about torturing your character. Um,
Oh my gosh.
um, okay, so once we have that idea of like putting ideas in,
I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. Can you say that again?
goes with. Oh no, can you hear me better? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think so.
There we go. Sorry, it's being in the middle of nowhere is hard.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that's what it is, because it sounds like you're having an internet hiccup, because it like gets like the sound is still coming through, but it comes through slowly.
all right, let's try this. Is that better?
Uh, yes, actually, that sounds better.
Okay, cool. So anyway, what I was saying is it kind of goes with the yes and kind of what we talked about with like having ideas, but you need to collaborate with your partner.
Yeah,
And this is one-on-one as well as group.
yeah,
That this is a group project. You have to give you as my advice is to only invest a little more than what your partner is investing.
mm-hmm,
Um so that is so to if your partner is super excited, be super excited. If you are super excited and your partner is not super excited, you can't just continue to be super excited at them,
yeah,
because you're as someone who is you're gonna plot yourself out and you're gonna be upset that you're the only person plotting.
yeah.
Um, and that's my view on it. That this is a collaboration. It has to be equal partnership in it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it doesn't have to be equal like all the time, right? Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't have to
no.
be equal 24/7. But I do think over the course, if you look at like over the course of several months, it should basically be equal, right? Over the course of a few months with the same person, you should be able to see multiple times that you gave a little more, and multiple times that they gave a little bit more, right?
Yes. Yeah, of course. And people are going to have different things at different points in time and different like abilities to RP and everything like that too. So it should be over the course of the entirety of the relationship
Yeah.
and plot. But it should be that you are not feeling like the only person putting in effort.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a person who wants to put in little like less effort, you need to make sure to like let your partner know that you are
Yeah.
not really a plotter or that you don't really want to discuss things like that you want to see how things come and are played out,
Yep.
because I think that really can put pressure and really make the relationship difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to tell them because that gives them an opportunity to say, okay, well, that's not going to work this time because of blah 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 blah. But if you just never address it, then you end up in something where the relationship can fester in this very this, you can build up this resentment, between you and the other person if it's never
Yes,
addressed.
exactly, yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I had some notes. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I had some notes on what I wanted to say when it comes to plotting. Um, so the other thing when it comes to like coming up with an idea and writing the starter and everything, I think it's super important to not be married to your initial first idea and
Yes.
to, oh yes, got one. Um, and we need him, the sour crocodile thing that keeps coming has to eat him. So that's why I was trying to
Oh,
get one. Um, so don't be super married to whatever it is that you come up with for your plot. Be a little bit flexible for that. Like you might have an end goal in mind, and then something crazy happens and you have to change that, right? And I
yes.
think that not that making sure that where to be rigid and where to be more flexible is a really critical skill when it comes to being a good role player, because there are certain things where you're going to find like, okay, to do what I want to do with this character, I actually have to do this and it's not negotiable. Like this has to happen, right? And I have to figure out a way to make it happen. But there are places where you can be a little bit flexible. Like it doesn't always have to be like that. And I think trying making space for the times that you can be more flexible is really important, right? Because that opens you up to not only getting the right support for your character, it opens you up to more complex and more interesting things than what you could come up with on your own. It also makes it so that you seem like you're open and so that you're there to help other characters also, do the things that they want to do and help them along with
Yeah.
their storylines in addition to you, getting your storyline for your character that you want.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. Um, sorry, you just said it so well.
Oh no, you're so sorry.
that no,
I
you
try
said
to not
that.
do that too much so that
Oh
that
God,
we have more of a conversation.
oh my God, you're just so perfect though.
Oh, stop
No,
it.
that your character is obviously your main character, but the other character is theirs as well. And you have to give and take that you have to be there to help them with their plots as much as they are to help you with your plots.
Yeah.
As well as that if you are, I mean, I think that if you are rigid in your plot lines, you might not as well like write, you might as well just write a book.
Yeah,
Right.
right? Like why are you role playing? I do
um
wonder that when people get super rigid on everything and they're never willing to flex. I wonder like what are you doing here? Why don't you just, AO3 exists, like go.
yeah, I also just don't understand when it comes to that sorry,
You're good.
had the thought, lost it, that you as an RPer, like, oh, if you're in a group RP, you know that there are going to be events. You know that there are multiple people affecting things around you.
Yeah.
None of those people, at least in most RPs have a no god modding rule.
Mhm.
So no one can directly control what happens to your character,
Mhm.
but you know that things that are going to happen within the world are going to affect you.
Yep, they sure are.
Um,
And you can't
and
stop it.
that's what you sign up for when you are in a group RP. So yes, hypothetically, if you wanted to, you could plan the next year out. I'm not gonna lie, I've done that. But I've also kept in mind that there's going to be something that's going to mess that up. That's
Yeah.
going to change the course. That's going to make it better. Because frankly, when you have a collaboration and you're making a story together, that's going to make it better than just your ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple good comments that I want to call out. So Thumper said, I want to be a plotter, but I'm way too convinced that everyone's got a sniper lined up to find the holes in any plans. Like, I don't think that's true. And when I have been sniped like that, because there are some people like, okay, let's be honest, there are some people that are like that.
Yes.
When like I just say, congratulations, you found the plot hole. Like, it doesn't mean anything. There's plot holes in everything. There's no such thing as a story. Like, even the most beloved stories have plot holes. Like, who cares? It's not about that. Like, at the end of the day, nobody really cares. And even the people that do care about that, they're not like they're not really thinking about it in the right way. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good collaboration. So I would say, like, that's my take on it. When someone finds my plot holes, it's like, congratulations, gold star for you. um, I don't mean plot
I
holes. I mean, someone will find a way to sabotage it. Oh yeah, and I've had that before too. And I just tell them, like, you need to message me and talk about that. Like, you can't just do that. Like, I don't let people do that to me. Just straight up, I'll DM them and be like, yo, what the hell?
Yeah, and I think that there's also, if I think that I can only speak to us as mods, right? And
Yeah.
frankly, I can only speak to our RPs because those are the RPs that I've been in recently. But if there is an important plot that you want to make happen, we will foster that to make
Yeah.
happen.
Like, we're gonna
I
make it
understand
happen.
that, yeah, I understand that there is a lot of anxiety around it. I understand there can be a lot of, yeah, that it's scary to build your own plot. It's scary to get excited about something, to have something be ruined, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Um, but if you really want a plot, then bring it up to your partners, because most people most of the time will sit there and be like, "Okay, yeah, let's do that. That sounds awesome." You
Yeah.
might
Most
have to
people want to make it
negotiate.
happen.
Yeah, you might have to negotiate it a little bit. You might have to sit there and be like, "Oh, like I frankly, Thumper, I hope you don't mind me calling us out on this, but we had a plot between two people who are going to be in a relationship, and Thumper, when she originally brought up the idea, had a very different ending to how we kind of discussed that other ending to be, as far as it was for James and Ari, uh, that she had this idea of it being like, happiness ever after, and anyone who's met me knows not how I roll. Um, so being able to have that discussion and plotting time to sit there and be like, okay, what is something that gets you the plot that you want and gets me the plot that I want, and come up with that collaboration, I think is part of the fun part of plotting,
Yeah.
is that teamwork, that coming together and trying to figure that out, is the fun part of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think we've all
that's
had experiences like that where, like, you want to do something, you both want to do it, but the way that you want to do it is just quite different.
yeah, just a little
So,
bit. So how do you make those things line up? And sometimes
yeah.
they don't line up, but sometimes they do, and it can be really really great when it does.
Mhm.
And sometimes, like, also characters have minds of their own, or you have to stay true to character, or you get caught up in a plot or a thread, and that things just kind of get thrown off, and that's okay too.
Yep.
But for the most part, I think that if there is something that you really do want to have long-term plotting with, and you want to plot it out, having open communication about that is going to be what's going to make it easier.
Yeah, it's
um,
crucial.
and letting everyone in on it. Sometimes it's really fun to want to keep your big plots a secret from everybody else, so that when the moment hits, it's like jaw dropping.
Mhm.
But that comes with a lot of trust and a lot of faith and a lot of practice.
Yep. And then we had a good question. Do people not
Yeah.
play as support characters, mostly being what's needed in other characters' plotlines? Yeah, no, actually, nobody wants to do that. I mean, I say
No.
nobody, but it's like nobody asterisk, right? Like, every once in a while, you will get people willing to play support characters, or like in my role plays, we allow people to create multiple characters, so they might have like a main character that's really theirs, and then another one that they create for somebody else. Like, that does happen, but generally, no. Generally, everybody wants to feel special. They want their character to be the main character. They don't want to play support. But you have to play support sometimes, right? Like, you have to play support sometimes, or nothing ever happens. If you're the main character all the time, no one wants to play with you, and that's
Yeah.
just the truth. So yeah, we said it sounds like dancing. Actually, yeah, 100%. It's a lot like dancing. Like, I liken role play to dating a lot, because I really do think it's like that. It's an intimate activity that you're doing generally, not always, with one other person at a time. Even in a group role play, you're not. not always role playing as a group. You're usually having specific interactions with specific people. It's a lot like those types of activities, dancing and dating and things like that. It really, really is.
To very quickly touch back on what you were saying about playing side characters.
Yeah.
If you think of yourself, you are the main character of your story.
Yeah,
You
because
don't
I'm
think
writing
of
from my
yourself as
character's perspective.
like not even as a character. You as a living human being. You,
Yeah,
Karen, are the main character of your life.
of the Karen story.
I am the main character of everybody's story. Just kidding.
You know
Of
what?
my story.
Mute
um,
Landon.
listen. But so we are our own main characters and everyone else side characters. That doesn't mean that everyone else is a side character. And role playing is the same exact way. You are writing from the perspective of your character, and therefore that character thinks they are the main character. In the big, huge telling of the story, you need to be able to be there to support other characters in their quest for power, and that's what kind of, or in their quest for end goals and plot.
Yeah, whatever it is that
Um,
they want to do.
while also doing your own. And that's what kind of makes it fun, I think. I think that's what makes group RPs so special is that, like, anywhere between 10 to 50 characters trying to live their main character life while also just being each other's stepping stones.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Oh yeah, Batman and Robin. I love that. Oh man, remember when Scrubs was good? I do.
I didn't watch Scrubs until it was off of the air. And so,
Really?
like, and I think I skipped the last season altogether because I had heard it was terrible.
It's awful. Yeah, it's
Um,
awful. There's no
so
reason
no,
for it.
I don't remember when it was good, but I do remember rewatching it and thinking it was funny and thinking that, like, I had that thought of like, oh God, I'm JD, and that's really just not who I want to be in life.
I think a
But
lot
I
of people
am.
watching Scrubs had that feeling. I'm JD and I don't want to be.
Dr. Cox, okay, Thumper. Dr. Cox is the best. Actually, Dr. Cox is who I want to be. Sarcastic asshole? Hell yeah. Give it to me.
Live your dreams.
Thanks. But then going back to the dancing thing, yeah, it is. It is about dancing. It's about movements, and it's an always playing game, and that you have to um, trust what your partner is going to do is going to follow the rules, and like Hazazak said, that partner can switch it up and surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes it's not so great, and you have to deal with the fallout of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it so complicated and messy and one.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, and then I think also when plotting, I think the last thing that we have, which we've kind of already discussed, is knowing the direction that you want to go.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I think that's
is this
important.
is this you don't necessarily have to know that about everything, especially when it comes to starter writing. But if you're going to have an interaction with something and you want those two characters to be important to each other, is it going to be a ship? Is it going to be a friendship? Is it going to be enemies? Real life people would know after that first interaction the kind of direction this relationship may have potential to go. They might not know the ending of it, but they would have a sense of being like, do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Do I find this person attractive? You have to keep that in mind with your characters too when you're building plots. And being like, oh, what would my character feel about this character, and what direction do we want to go with two characters together?
Mm-hmm. These guys are gonna keep fighting. It's so annoying.
we love it when they do we?
It's expensive for me. I have to keep healing them.
Well, I mean, isn't that every mother's dream?
I have a terrible, terrible habit of judging the attractiveness of characters based on the face claim choice. I think a lot of people that come from like face claim style role plays, so that was like, LiveJournal back in the day and kind of Tumblr today. And I feel like a lot of the face claim role players are on Twitter nowadays, but yeah, like I do think that a lot of people fall into that trap where they see a face claim and they think like, oh, based on the face claim, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and they don't really spend time thinking about if the characters are actually compatible. Like, I know this happens in yes, got him. Okay. The crocodile also has to eat two of him, so hopefully another one will join. Um,
Ooh,
so that's something that
gotcha.
I think is really critical to think about. Like, okay, you might really like this face claim, but is this actual like character compatible with your character? And sometimes like you can make that happen, and sometimes it doesn't really happen that way. It just really depends. Um, because in think about like in real life, when you see somebody you think is attractive, like I think people do this in real life too. They get all these ideas in their head, and then sometimes the actual person doesn't pan out to be like
Yeah.
what they thought based on their appearance. So it's very similar when it comes to role play for that to happen as well. And I think you just got to be open to being like, well, shoot, I was wrong about that, and this actually isn't going to happen, and it's not going to work out in the way that I think it is. It just turns out it's going to be a fling, which is what would happen in reality if you're in the same situation, right? Where you're like, this person's super hot, I'm going to pursue them, and then it turns out, oh, I was wrong, they're not actually.
They're pretty
Yep.
shallow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that also, Thumper, I don't know if you're talking. Thumper says it's like this is a cute idea, but you've chosen an idea I would fight with my two hands. So
Oh
unhappy.
yeah, if you don't like the face claim, that's like the opposite problem,
I
right?
like, yeah, I sit there and I go, there are certainly face claims that because of experience or because I just don't like their face or I just don't like them as a person and who their brand is in real life. I understand that like quick like nah, no thanks.
Yeah.
I think that Discord makes it a little bit easier considering we're not constantly seeing that person's face
Whereas when we used to roleplay on Tumblr, you would see their face all the time because we would use the gift chats.
constantly.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think that that is part of uh trying to figure out how to write, like, to not character plead a little bit, because it would be what is your feelings about this FC,
Mm-hmm.
versus what would my character feel about this character.
Yep.
And if your character would be down to fight this character because the other person's FC just happens to have a really punchable face, that's totally fine.
I mean that happens
Um,
in real life too. I'm sure you've met somebody that's like when you first meet them and your initial instinct is like, "Oh my god, I freaking hate you." And I think
yeah,
that's valid too. Like I mean cuz
like
that happens in reality.
you just take a fist really, really well.
Yeah, like
Um,
why do you have to look just like my ex? Ugh, you know.
really, come on. um, but I think that that is also part of like getting over the struggle of being a of not trying to make your characters as much yourself and just sitting there and being like, okay, my characters have to, I want to play my characters as close to living breathing human beings as possible,
Yeah.
as realistic as possible, which means that they're going to have different emotions. And like Rab loves blondes, you can't stop the blonde train.
Can't stop.
Me,
Won't
however,
stop.
I'm like, they're fine, I guess. But they're fine, I guess. But so it's kind of like, okay, taking it's that practice of taking yourself out of it,
Yeah.
which is extremely difficult and
Yeah.
doesn't always work, because I guarantee you I have those FCs that just make me not want to play with another person, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I have that too just because, someone's ruined it for me before. Like they played this character and like I really didn't get along with them. I really didn't like their character. Or we had some kind of crazy falling out or whatever, and now every time I see that face claim I'm like, "Ew." And it's
Yeah,
not on purpose. It's just the reality of what the associations that happen in your brain.
we're human, like that's the
Yeah.
other thing too, and we can apply that to our characters. Do not get me wrong, I have written a very inconvenient ex before to sit there and be like, oh man, you look just like his ex-girlfriend. Guess he can't like you. Like, I have done that before, and that's perfectly reasonable. As long as you're aware that you're, cutting off any, that's the direction in which you're taking that plot. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. And Thumper's comment, so I just feel so shallow. I mean, it is kind of shallow, but I think there's like a line, right? Like I think it's disingenuous to pretend like people aren't shallow, that like you're some
Yeah.
perfect person that aesthetics don't matter to, because that's just not real. Like that's not real at the end of the day. And yeah, we do as people, as visual creatures, because we generally are visual creatures, we do place too much value on aesthetics. Like 100% we do. And it causes a lot of problems. And there's an urge to not want to duplicate certain problems in the role play space that exist in reality. And like I totally get that. But also I don't think there's any value in being too hard on yourself to the point where you can't really do it. Like everybody has limits in what they can do, and and how much they can implement those sort of things into their writing and into their role play. So if it's a reality for you, I think it's valid.
Yep, I agree. And if that's just like, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
To
I don't think it's really a problem, because it's
yeah,
because it's real, and so long as you're not as long as you're keeping your character bleed to a minimum where you're not affecting the other writer, then that is what it is.
that's okay, Thumper. We reached to the point of the end of our notes, so really we needed to continue this conversation for 15 minutes anyway. So
Yeah,
you
no,
did a
we're
good
good.
job.
You can derail as much as you want. I mean, like I do want you guys in the chat to like feel like you can contribute to the conversation even if you don't want to necessarily like come on the stream, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're helping as many people as possible, right? Like that's the whole point, right? Is to help you guys with role play. And I really, really do believe that the way that people are going to find the most help is by getting lots of different opinions. So the derailing is an important part of the stream. Derail
Oh,
away.
thanks, Zach. He says we're very educational.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
I'm assuming your name is Zach because it's I just so if it's not, I'm sorry.
You can tell us what you want us to call you if it's not Zach.
But yeah, I think that, and I think other people have that issue too.
Yeah.
Let's see, did we discuss how to write a plot for a group that will be easy for people to jump in? Not so I
So
think that
we
that's a little bit more discussing like how to write or creating your own RP and things like that.
Yeah,
Um
so like no, but I'll just fall on the sword here. I actually nixed that. Landon did want to talk a little bit about making a group, and I said no, um, because I think that that's its own dedicated topic. So I do want to spend some time talking about like what it means to step into the role of like a game master or a dungeon master, what it means to like create a group role play, things like that. Um, and like a kind of 101 like we're doing here, but a 101 for like moderators and game masters. I do want to do something like that because I think that's its whole topic that we can spend 2 hours talking about.
that is very true. Although I feel like we've proven so far that we can spend 2 hours talking about almost anything.
Oh my god, that's true. True.
I think my big takeaway when it comes to being new and getting started with plots is to have an idea, let your partner in on that idea, and run with it.
Yeah.
And let it change and let it adapt and change and let it adapt and change your character.
Yeah. It's really all about the yes and at the end of the day. When it comes to
Yes.
all of these things that we've talked about, when it comes to like, looking for a group and getting started and looking at those social cues, right? When it comes to your creating your character, when it comes to those initial plotting things that you have to do, like it's really all about the yes and. If you can master being like a yes and type of person in every aspect of your role play experience, then I think you are like so ahead of the game.
Yep.
If you can do that everywhere.
And also, this all comes with practice, and even with tons of practice, you'll mess up. I
Oh
will
yeah,
admit, I am not a master at a lot of these things.
yeah,
That's just part of how it works, is that you are trying to mesh with people on the internet, and that can go really well and that can go not so well sometimes. And to just keep in mind that all you're really trying to do is have a fun time and build off of one another.
yeah. I mean, I still mess up to this day. There's still things that I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have responded like that, or oh, I should have made a big deal out of this, but I didn't, or things like, gosh, I wish I would have made a different decision. This didn't turn out the way that I thought it was going to. Like, that still happens to this day. And I really honestly don't think it's ever going to stop happening. But
No.
that's kind of the beauty of roleplay. It's because it has so much to do with everyone else and not just me, that it engages me in a way that other writing activities just do not and can't.
And nothing is also permanent too. Like sitting there and being like, "Oh man, I made a decision that ended up getting my character killed. Guess next RP I'll have to re-bring that character in and try again."
Yeah. I mean, we do that a lot, right? There's definitely role plays that have been like kind of redemption arcs for characters,
Oh
you
yeah.
know? I mean,
Um,
I wanted to give myself the challenge in Magic Reborn of playing like Abby but a good guy, which was it was crazy, but it was really good. It was really good to expand her in that way.
yeah, and it's very interesting on how to. I like the redos, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like the opportunity to sit there and either expand or make a different decision,
Uh
or
huh.
make the same decision and let your partners make different decisions.
Yep.
All of it is you can tell a story a million different ways, and RP gives you the ability that if you want to, you can tell that story a million ways
Yeah.
with different choices.
Yep, and it's so easy to do because you have all of these other people that you're relying on for the story to happen. You know, so you can't get trapped into like your same old things because even if you do, if other people aren't doing that, if they're not getting trapped into their same old things, then okay, well now you end up having to have differences. You know?
Yeah. Thumper said that Rab got to not be a serial killer for that one RP, and that
Yeah,
was the good thing
one
that came
whole
of him.
RP, and then he went right back, and then he went right
Although,
back.
to be fair, when we were playing Yin said and he was charming, he was not a serial killer. He was a creeper, but he was not a serial killer. Just,
I
just
mean, he
needed
was close though. He was a
redemption.
lawyer, so
Yeah, I mean, he was a shark and also like super stalkery, but you know what? It's fine. He has a thing for blondes. He can't help himself.
poor guy, poor guy. He doesn't actually deserve pity. Don't be fooled, y'all.
You know, so much pity. Please pity Rab. That's all he wants.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we've hit the 150 mark, and I have some good news for you if you want it.
Oh, what is it?
Um, so a woman was reunited with a lost teddy bear, uh, and it was all thanks because of Ryan Reynolds
Oh my gosh, I love Ryan Reynolds and teddy bears. So this
and
sounds
teddy
right up my
bears.
alley. Let me can you link I assume this is
I
our
can.
article of the day,
It is
right?
our article. Yes,
Okay.
I figured that was a good transition.
Yes. Can you link it and I'll bring it up on screen and I'm just going to
It is
save the game
linked.
and get that done. Thank you. I see it. Okay. Let's get out of here. Okay. Woman reunited with lost teddy bear. Oh my gosh. I love Ryan Reynolds, by the way. Like, if y'all are not
Oh,
following Ryan Reynolds' Twitter, you are missing out. He doesn't tweet super often, but when he does, they're gold.
I need to tell you that I gave up Vegetable Orchestra simply because Ryan Reynolds was the name of this headline.
Really?
That's how much I love Ryan Reynolds. Is I'd give up a Vegetable Orchestra and reading about that for
Oh my
this.
gosh. Okay, so let's see this.
So,
Ryan Reynolds, Vancouver, $5,000 to anyone who returns this bear tomorrow. Zero questions asked. I think we all need this bear to come. Oh my gosh, he signal
so
boosted her bear.
yep. The story is that Mara is a 28-year-old woman whose backpack was stolen the other day, with an iPad and this teddy bear inside of it. And now she didn't care about the iPad because it was really important. This bear came from Build a Bear and had one of those voice recordings of her mother's voice, and her mother passed in 2017.
Oh my.
And the bear said things like, I love you and I'm proud of you, in her mother's voice. And so she had this bear since her mother died of cancer, and had been diagnosed with cancer. And so it was the last like remaining thing she had of her mom, especially of voice wise. And it was in the backpack that had been stolen. And all she wanted was the backpack back. That's it. She just wanted the bear back. They could keep the iPad. She just really wanted her mom's voice. And so Ryan Reynolds blasted this on his Twitter, offered $5,000 to someone who would return the bear, and two people came forward and returned the bear. And so she is reunited with her bear.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and it was a little heartwarming little thing to know um, that not only did Ryan Reynolds tweet this out and make it happen, but that Mara got the last piece of her mom back.
Here's the quote when she got the bear back. Then on Tuesday night, Mara's special bear came back home. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of buckled. As soon as I saw him pull her out of the bag, I just started sobbing and I grabbed her out of his hands and couldn't let her go. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
Yep. And Ryan did end up paying the people who found the bear. He
Good.
ended up wiring the money, so it was 100% like a real thing, and that he made this happen. So Yeah, just a little bit of happy news for you.
That's so cool. As much as Twitter is like a hell site, every once in a while things happen like this because
It's
of the reach that you can get on Twitter that are just so wonderful. Like that's one of the things that you couldn't have done before the internet
yeah.
existed, and but because of the internet, like these sort of things can happen now. It's just beautiful.
Well, and I know it's a small thing, and that there's a lot of bad in the world, and a lot of celebrities are not using their power and influence the way that they should. But the fact that
True.
Ryan did this is just it's a really great testament to that he is aware of the power he holds, and that he's willing to use it in ways that he can,
Yeah.
which is nice to know.
Yeah. That is really
Um,
nice.
and it's nice to know that, like, when you have power and privilege, you can do stuff like this, because God, I wish I could do stuff like this for
Yeah.
people. I just, I'm a poor college student, so I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could too, for sure. And I think that it's tough, right? It's tough because the way that our society is set up, most of the people that end up getting that power and influence are not the sort of people that would do something like this. So
Yep,
it's very nice when you do see something like this pan out and work out the way that it should.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that brings us to the end of our episode.
Yeah. This was a good article to end on. Okay, let me get back to. So yeah, that's been our show today. I feel like that this is gonna be good for a lot of you guys that are kind of getting started in role play, that are really just like, because at this point on my channel there's a ton of videos. There's just a ton of videos. And I know it can be overwhelming to look through the 101 playlist, and there's just so much just to know, like, okay, well, what do I actually need to know to get started? So I think going forward, probably going to point people to this episode that are just like, I'm brand new and I don't even know what my questions are. I'm so new. I don't even know what my questions are. Because I think we covered a lot of that today, of the stuff that you
Yeah,
really need to know at the very beginning.
I agree.
All right.
Um, all right, so be sure to follow this Twitch channel for
Yes.
future
Down
chats with
below.
us.
Down. I think it's
Follow,
like down here, the little heart icon.
yes, follow Karen on her Instagram, but mostly her Twitter, because she's amazing on there. You can follow me at Land in Maine on Instagram. Remember to follow the stream Instagram too, at Enter Stage Window.
Yep.
And I will not be here next week, so I will miss you all dearly. But I believe our wonderful friend Naomi is stepping in.
Yeah, Naomi's gonna try to come back for next week. While you're on your super awesome vacation.
Yes, well, I'll be driving back, so that's the reason that I can't
Yeah.
join you guys. But
Oh my gosh, trying to get the voice on Discord to work while you're like driving down the highway, that would be a nightmare.
yeah, I figured it's just not worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we will miss Landon. We will miss Landon a lot, but we're still going to have a stream.
Thanks.
Anytime that I'm available, we're still going to stream regardless, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So we will still have an episode next week. Landon will just have to watch the VODs afterwards.
Yeah. I just didn't want you all to be shocked and, devastated at the moment that I was gone.
I mean,
He's
Thumper clearly
he's like,
is.
yeah, good. People should be.
Yeah, so follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Those
Yes.
I do like smaller role play help posts every Wednesday, videos that are basically between like 5 and 10 minutes, on more discrete topics. If you're interested in supporting us as far as like, improving the stream and things like that, clearly, as you're seeing right now, like I need an actual webcam. I'm using like this really crappy old camera that just happens to have a USB hookup. Subscribe to the Patreon for that. I've also got a PayPal link down below if you're more interested in like just donating a particular like amount. And if you do donate on PayPal while we're live, it like pops up with a nice little banner that thanks you for it. So if you're interested in that, and yeah, I think that's all the things, because you already mentioned, follow me on Twitter. That's the other place that I actually post content to, and for Landon, that's her Instagram. That's where she's actually posting content.
Yes, you can see the wonderful place that I'm vacationing at.
Yes, it's
So,
beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful there. Like if y'all don't look, you're missing out for real.
yes. So, okay. Well, this has been wonderful. I won't see you guys next week, but I will see you guys in a few weeks.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys. Bye. That's our
Bye.
stream.
Don't forget to be awesome.
Woo!